Hey guys, Gary J here. And today we're looking at a old rifle here, and another one of my favorite rifles. I thought I'd done a video on this one, but I haven't. There's probably several guns I haven't done videos on. I've done a lot of gun videos though, if you care to look. But this one I bought a long time ago because the name of this rifle is called a Flobert. By some people, it's called Flobert, but I call it a Flobert because that's kind of the way it sounds. If you spell it, it's Flobert. And the reason I like this Flobert or Flobert rifle has to do with the fellow who invented the first rimfire cartridge, which was Mr. Flobert, or Flobert. Now this rifle goes back from 1880 to 1914, 1880s to 1914. And they were imported from Belgium by the thousands. And some were marked by the maker's name, but most of these didn't have Flobert's name on them. They had a couple of proof signs so you would know, but I never saw too many of these type of breech designs on any other gun but these, which was kind of unique for Flobert because he made the breech system too. The one good thing that you can say about the Flobert, and we're just going to call it Flobert, that just sounds right to me, but one of the great neat things that you can say about it, it was cheap. It was a cheap gun that you could buy. It was generally under $3. And again, you're looking at between the 1880s to 1914. There were guns that were twice this amount and much higher that were really well made. I like this design right here. We'll take a closer look at that trigger guard. It's really fancy right there, and it's an Oshkosh barrel. Got a unique breech system to it. And I would give anything if I could bore this thing out. Well, I wouldn't give anything because I would have it done. But the way it's designed and all, if somebody would make one similar to this, it would be a great thing to have. Kind of remind you of the Ruger number ones or something like that with a rolling block. But this system is different than that. But they were cheap, on money-wise. And the basic Flobert concept of self-contained bulleted cartridges was developed and patented in 1845 to 1850. Now, the first rimfire, and what he's doing basically is making a brass case and putting a round ball in it for the bullet. And inside the brass case, he's not putting gunpowder. All he's putting is basically an ignition type of primer compound, and that's all that's inside the case is a primer compound. So when the firing pin hits the brass casing like a rimfire, it's going to go off. So it doesn't really have any power to it. Now, Mr. Flobert, his name was Louis Nicholas Augusta Flobert, or Flobert. Now, he designed a simple firearm mechanism to fire his cartridges. Well, very simple. So, he modified a percussion cap by swagging a hollow rim on the base of the percussion cap and filling the hollow rim with the fulminate priming compound, which was the propellant. He added a round ball projectile which produced the bullet part of it. Now, this was a breech cap, BB cap, what it was called. Flobert's work was the origin of the rimfire cartridge. So, he only had to do one more thing here to be really, really famous. You've probably never heard of Mr. Flobert or Flobert, right? You just had to do one more thing and you might have heard of his name. So Smith & Wesson comes in the picture here. Smith & Wesson made an improvement of power to this cartridge and the reliability of the basic Flobert cartridge concept. They added powder to this. Imagine that. Mr. Flobert's come up with a bullet, he's come up with the casing, and he's just using the projectile force of that with the priming compound, but no gunpowder. They added gunpowder to it. Now they have, Smith & Wesson has the first 22 long, 22 short. Smith & Wesson now has created the 22 short cartridge in 1857. That's pretty incredible. And they would be famous for that, and a lot of money they would make off of that. Now, the original Flobert system did not have a separate breech block, and only the heavily sprung hammer impacted the end of the breech block held the chamber pressure of the cartridge, which means the hammer was real hard to pull back, and there was nothing to keep the cartridge from going backwards. So when the hammer hit, the cartridge couldn't push the hammer back. So that was the fail-safe of the system. So you ask, why would anybody create? Now he did pistols this way too. With the rifles, different length, beautiful pistols. So why would you do that? Well, it's kind of like the BB gun, I guess. It was they would shoot these guns in parlors because the weather was too bad outside or whatnot, and this was an indoor game, and saloons and parlors, and buildings that had vaulted ceilings and high ceilings and so forth, and it was kind of like one of those. I guess to me it reminds me of the carnivals you go to, and you're shooting at some little star or something like that. So I mean, it wasn't made to be precisionally accurate, but it was just something to shoot. You see, I think, just my opinion, Mr. Flobert, he didn't think quite far enough. He just put powder in it, things would have been so much different. Now, he would go on to make rifles that would shoot regular cartridges with powder. He would make shotguns. He would make pistols. He would make ammunition, cartridges, and shotgun shells too. So he was pretty big in all that stuff. And that's just a little bit of history about him. Now that the breech part of this particular one here is unlike the first one. There were 3 different types of breeches, locking systems that he used. And so the breech system on this one is different than the first one, which just used a hammer alone, which the hammer on this one is pretty hard. I measured the trigger pull on this one, and it's only 2 pounds trigger pull. So the trigger pull was exceptional to me. And the front side has a little white material on the front side, which when I bought this years ago, the guy told me that was the piece of ivory for the front sight. I mean, it's got the metal sight, but it's like we have a red dot or something on the front sight. This was the piece of ivory on that. That's what he told me. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. So the first improvement Flobert did to his locking system was the addition of a pivoting extractor, which is this kind here, and I'll show you. This type of extractor covered the bottom half of the barrel. It had a cutout for the cartridge body and was pivoted on a pin set in the frame. The extractor was manually operated by a thumb piece after the hammer had been cocked. The modification retained the unlocked breech of the original Flobert system, and the breech block was fitted with a movable firing pin. So, this is just a little bit about the Flobert. And the cartridges that he had made for the original rifles that he made, they were chambered for what was called a BB cap, a 22 short, a 22 long, and 6mm, and a 32 rimfire. Now this one is a 32 rimfire and a 9mm rimfire cartridge. Both rifled and smoothbore barrels have been observed. Some had smoothbore barrels, some of them had rifled. This one's got rifling. Okay. Proof marks on these are usually E, L, or G, and an oval possibly surmounted by the crown. That's probably enough on this Flobert rifle here, and we'll look at this a little bit closer here. Okay, guys, looking at the Flobert or Flobert rifle here. The stock on it looks a little nicer than most of the ones I've seen. I did sand this stock down and clean it up a little bit originally. I bought this a long time ago. And the barrel, I forgot what I did to the barrel on it. I know I polished the barrel out, so it's not blued or anything like that. I can't remember if it was ever blued, but I polished the barrel out a little bit. It's octagon barrel, a breech system here. And it's got these tiny sights, front sights on there. And I like the sights on here. You could get it in focus. They are small. You could as the old people used to say, you could shoot the eyes out of a hummingbird if you could hold it there, right? And so on the front though, this octagon barrel. And you see the front sight right here. Now that yellow piece in the middle there, which used to be kind of more white, that's supposed to be made of ivory. I don't know, but it kind of has that patina color where it turns yellow, like ivory. And look at the barrel here. You see how thick this barrel is right here? I know the light's not great right there, but anyway, the barrel's really thick metal. And look at this trigger guard. Isn't that beautiful, that trigger guard? Beautiful shape and design on that. Trigger pull, I tested the trigger pull on it, was 2 pounds. 2 pounds. Now actually the hammer's not hard to pull back on this either. And it's supposed to be a 24-inch barrel on these generally. And this right here, these are your 32 short rimfire. And these are 2 that I've shot already, the 32 short rimfire. And this is your 22 short here, and your 22 long rifles beside it. Trying to give you a comparison there. So you can take one of these shorts right here and drop it inside the 32. It's a little bit bigger, but it's not a monster. In this box of ammo right here, 32 short rimfire. There's a company that makes, I can't think of the name of the company. It's old ammunition, but you can buy any type of old ammunition that they don't make anymore from this company. And I think this box right here, I'm trying to think, it cost me like, when I bought it years ago, it was about $35 or something like that, because they specialize in making real antique ammunition that you cannot buy. Nobody makes a 32 short rimfire except companies like this one here. And so that's where that came from. I don't know. Especially Navy Arms. I'm thinking it's got a different name for the a company. It's something old ammunition or something like that that they specialize in making. Okay, enough of that. All right, looking at the top here with the breech, on the hammer here, the hammer's not hard to pull back because this gun's not that big. And this right here, breech facing here, comes up, and you pull it up here, and right here is the ejector. See the ejector? That's a manual ejector. And put your cartridge in, and this is kind of your safety right here, but there's nothing holding this right here. So until you push your hammer forward, see how the hammer sticks out right here, that keeps the breech from coming up. The hammer locks it in place. So whether or not you want to keep it on a around like that, if you drop it, it probably would go off if you dropped it on the hammer. Otherwise, you pull it back, and that trigger pull is only faster than I realized. It's only 2 pounds, like I said when I measured it. So it's just a very simple design here. And then you open this up, and you can see the ejector right here. So normally it would be kind of like that. And you take your rimfire and place it in here, pull that down, and then pull your hammer back to shoot. And then after you shot, then you pull your hammer back to the middle position, and then pull this up right here, and see how it pulls the cartridge back. But that's tiny. It looks like a 22 short in my hand right there. How accurate is it? Well, these are not going to hit a squirrel, I don't think. I shot it a few times, and it was all over the place. I mean, it was bad all over the place, which the rifling is not that great looking on the inside. Some of these were made with smooth bores, too. So, I mean, it's a real close range gun. You'd have to be shooting, you know, standing by a tree with a squirrel in it to hit a squirrel with it, probably. It's just not that accurate. I got something else to show you on this gun right here in one of the magazines that I have, 1910 Sears and Roebuck catalog that has this gun featured here. And it's really interesting what they say about it. But this is basically your Flobert or Flobert rifle, and this right here is the other side of it, and the stock on it looks pretty good. Now the ones I've seen look pretty rough. The stock looks rough, the gun looks rough, it looks like they've been hammered and beat and everything else, but this one looks really clean. Maybe you get a little better view of that barrel right there. I think I polished the crown of that barrel out too a little bit. Oh, might need to do a crown job on it. Maybe that'd help it be a little bit more accurate. I don't know. But to me, it's a very neat looking rifle. I wish that somebody would make one like this in like a 223 or something like that. That would be sweet, you know, with this kind of block system, maybe a little bit modified, more so than that. So I'll just give you some idea of the Flobert or Flobert, however you want to pronounce this particular rifle here. But just a real gem and a pretty gun. I see these usually sell, I've seen them go between $300 and maybe $500 for. Okay guys, I wanted to show you this article in this book because this was back in the day when people had integrity, which a lot of people don't have integrity when they sell stuff. And this is a prime example of people who had integrity when they sold something. Now this is the 1902 edition of the Sears Roebuck catalog, which is a reproduction of the 1902. Notice Sears and Roebuck and Company, cheapest supply house on earth. Our trade reaches basically the whole world. The great price maker. The real value of this book is plainly shown in every price quotation. They're saying the prices you see in here are fair prices, and if Sears and Roebuck puts them in here, they're going to sell them at a fair price. You know, they tell you what they feel about the item that's here and whether it's a good buy or not, and that's what I wanted to show you. That's real interesting. And this, you can find these sometime. Think about 1902, and let me just run through a few pages here just to show you stuff that you would never know what this stuff is. Now, I remember these old sewing machines, what all this stuff is and how it's used or anything like that, but they have a ton of stuff in here. It's amazing, all the stuff they have. Now, this is the part I want to show you right here. Flobert rifle. You get it in focus. This is the part I want to show you right here. Flobert rifle. Okay. Now, right here is the CBB, which is very small. Use that in the parlors, salons, shooting, saloons. Parlors and saloons, shooting targets on the inside of the buildings. And then this is the 22 short right here. Now notice the price is $1.60 for this in 1902 for the kind of CBB cartridge here. The 22 short was $2.25, and the Warnant system, Flobert, which is what I have. This is the 32. This is a 22-inch barrel here. And this is the 32 rimfire, which I have. And the price of that was $2.80 for the 32 caliber. Okay. Or $2.85. No, this is a different one. So anyway, $2.60, somewhere in there, for the Flobert. Now, this is what really amazes me with advertisement. This is when people had integrity. On the Flobert rifle right here, I want you to hear this. Note, we do not recommend nor guarantee Flobert. They don't recommend you buy this rifle. They don't recommend that. Well, they're telling you don't buy it, basically, and we're not going to guarantee it. Then it says, I'm sorry, the camera jumping this way. And it says, buy a good rifle. It will pay in the end. Buy a good one. Don't waste your money on this one. We recommend, is that GR665 and GR666. We think number GR665 is the best value for the money. Don't buy this one. Don't buy these. Buy the number GR665. What is that one? Well, we come down the page right here, and here it is. This is the one they're talking about. The Stevens Crack Shot Takedown Rifle for $2.95. It's only like 15 cents more. Looks really nice too. Got a better looking breech system here. And so they're telling you, buy this one. This one's better than that. Who does that anymore? Who tells you that this guy is not worth the money, that you ought to buy the other one? So in advertisement, 80% of all advertisement that I see is a total lie. Only 20% of it is true. But there was a time before you had fake advertisement. I guess you get that from Trump, right? Fake advertisement, fake news, all that stuff. There's no more integrity left sometimes. There are some people that do have integrity, yes. But for the most part, you don't see this anymore. So this is 1902. So the Flobert was there in 1902. But I thought it would be interesting just to see what Sears and Roebuck said about it in 1902 and how these people showed the great integrity. So if you didn't like something, it wasn't because they didn't tell you that it wasn't right. Oh, here's one. Here's a Stevens right here. This is a Stevens right here. And I've got one of these right here. One day I'll do a video on this one. Mine's got like a 12 or 15 inch barrel on it too. So that's again 1902 there. And that. Okay guys, I'll let you go, but hope you learned something about the Flobert rifle, which is really a nice rifle to me for what it is, an old gun. If you could get, accuracy out of it, that would be better. Thanks for watching. Gary J.